Hi guys, this is Supernova. I thought I'd make a video about homelessness because I'm kind of an expert on it myself, having been homeless for over a year and a half and having been homeless even before that at times. I've noticed discussing this with people in YouTube comments that a lot of people are ignorant about homelessness, which makes sense. I live in a city of about 32,000 people. At any one time, only about 200, maybe 300 people are homeless. So it's kind of a rare condition. I imagine that most of you watching have never been homeless. And so you glean what you can from TV and movies, which of course are not very close to real life because those people haven't been homeless either. And I thought I'd let you in on a few things that I've learned during my experiences. The first myth that I'd like to dispel is the idea that homeless people don't have jobs. I'm sure in some cases homeless people don't have jobs, but if you want to stay at a shelter, of course you're going to be greatly encouraged to get one. And if you don't want to remain homeless, which no homeless person does, of course you're going to go out and get a job as soon as you can. Now, of course, it's difficult. Think back to your last job interview. Did you prepare for it by not bathing for a week, wearing some old worn clothes, and carrying around a bindle, a backpack full of your toiletries and changes of clothes because you had no place to leave it? I highly doubt it. It's difficult to compete with other people who are freshly bathed and shaved and ready for an interview. But it's possible, obviously. I have a job and I'm homeless. I guess I got kind of lucky, but you know, have some empathy for people who are homeless and unemployed. But nonetheless, a lot of us are employed and we still continue not to have homes because we're not gainfully employed. We're not making living wages. And if you're not making a living wage, by definition, you're not making enough money to live without support of some kind. Some of us just don't have that support. We don't have welfare, and so we're stuck in this condition. It happens. The second myth I'd like to dispel is that homeless people deserved it somehow. I'm sure there are cases where people brought it upon themselves, but it, as I've observed in the homeless shelters, most of the people staying there are people who are waiting for disability. You know, if you through a medical need or through an accident become unable to work, uh, obviously you depend on disability, and it doesn't pay out for an average of a couple of years. So a lot of these long-term people who are waiting around in shelters uh, can't help it. They're disabled and they have to wait. It sucks that they don't have an income, so that they're without a home for quite a long period of time. This is especially true of people who are in shelters for a very short period of time. There are people who get divorced or break up from their significant other, who get evicted, or their house burns down. There's a variety of reasons why somebody might be homeless for a short period of time through no fault of their own. It happens. The third myth that I'd like to dispel is that panhandling is a racket. I remember I saw this on Fox News where one of the commentators went out in worn clothing and begged people for money. And of course, he was very aggressive about it. And he only did it for a couple of hours, not quite looking or smelling like your typical homeless bum. Of course, he did well. It would have been a little more scientific, so to speak, if he had actually watched a panhandler for a couple hours and observed how much money they make. It's not, again, it's not a living wage, and it probably doesn't even add up to minimum wage. It's not a great way to make a living, and it's a very embarrassing way to make a living. Nobody wants to beg for money. Nobody wants to depend on charity to survive. And I imagine if any of you live in cities, you've probably seen people holding up signs that say, "We'll work for food." Do you really think those people are out making a racket? They're not getting wealthy. They're begging to work so that they can survive for another day without even getting ahead. The fourth myth that I'd like to dispel is that homeless people want to be homeless. You yourself could just leave your home at any moment and become homeless if you want. It's a lot like those people who say, wow, how lucky those people are on welfare who are just taking government checks and not working. You could be one of them, and obviously you're not, for a variety of very good reasons. It's difficult being homeless. It really is. And you know that, which is why you don't want to be in this state. Anybody who's homeless is looking for a way to get out. The fifth myth is that homeless people are drunks. Now, obviously, this is true in some cases, and I've met a few of them myself. You'd probably be surprised to learn that, at least as far as the ones I've met, not a single one of them is homeless because they're drunk. It actually goes in the other direction. They're drunk because they're homeless. I myself have spent a few nights out on the actual streets in the cold, out where it's dangerous and very uncomfortable, where the police will move you no matter where you settle down. You're not wanted anywhere. It's physically painful and emotionally painful, and it's very difficult to deal with. And there are some people like me who can get through it with difficulty, but without getting drunk. And then there are a lot of people who can't, and they self-medicate on alcohol. And they probably dislike the conditions so much that they'd like to die. If you see a drunk out there, have some pity on him. He's probably just trying to survive the life of being homeless. It's traumatizing. So I hope I've taught you something. And of course, if you have any other questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. And of course, feel free to make any remarks or add anything of your own, especially if you've experienced homelessness. And thanks for watching.